You're at home by yourself, securely locked behind closed doors. Your plans for a relaxing evening are suddenly interrupted by armed men who break down the door. An overwhelming force holds you at gunpoint. Stop the Threat starts now. Hello and welcome to Stop the Threat. My name is James Towle. The guest this week will be Rob Pincus, and Rob is back and he's going to talk to us about the combat-focused shooting program. Kelly Muir has returned, and she is the founder of Wrong Woman Self-Defense, and we need to know more about that. Steve Vandermolen is here, and he is currently the manager of Thunder Shooters Club, and we want to know more about what takes place out there at Thunder. Thank you all for being here. Steve, let's start with you.
Okay.
Tell me more about what goes on at Thunder Club.
We continue to give people opportunity to do things they can't do anyplace else. And we're growing this program every year and adding programs, adding classes, letting people have a place where they can learn the basics and then grow with them. We're not treating this as a come in one time, get what you need and walk out. We're treating this as a place where you can come. We're going to continue to challenge you every year, continue to challenge you continuously, and grow your skills in a way that they couldn't grow anyplace else.
Is there a difference between Thunder Shooters Range and Thunder Shooters Club?
Yeah, the range is a public range.
And the club is something that you join.
Totally separate that you join, and we use different facilities than the public range. We have our own facilities on another part of the property.
Okay, all right. Kelly, come on, you got to tell us a little bit more about Wrong Woman Self-Defense. I mean, that's really a strong title.
Wrong woman. It's very simple. It means when somebody's looking for their next victim, make sure you're the wrong woman. So it's not nearly as complicated as it might seem. But what it is an integrated self-defense system. So rather than highlighting just one aspect of self-defense, which many people will default to the physical aspect of it, we teach three areas: intuitive decision-making, the physical component of it, and then we also have a great part where we educate and train women in the use of defensive tools.
Okay, and defensive tools does not include a gun.
It absolutely can.
It can?
It can. Now, they can choose to not to train in any of it, quite frankly, but they could come to the group and say, I'd like to have a little bit more training with pepper spray, or I'd like to learn how to use a taser. But if firearm, their concept of personal defense includes owning a firearm, then we absolutely will help them train with that.
Okay, all right. I got just a few minutes left. I want to talk to Rob about the combat-focused shooting program, because it sounds almost very similar to what Kelly's doing, except you are focusing on handguns.
Yeah, combat-focused shooting program is now a decade old. In 2003, we formalized the program. It deals with intuitive defensive shooting. So we talk about same kind of things that everybody's talking about, really. What is the defensive skill set that you need if you choose to have a firearm? Where do you start with your defensive shooting? If you're going to be training forever, you still have to start somewhere. And we look at defensive shooting as something that's very different from target shooting. We rely on what the body does naturally. We work with people intuitively integrating with the firearm, meeting the minimum standards we expect them to need in a defensive shooting. And then, of course, they can refine that from there in a program like what Steve is running, where they can refine those marksmanship skills. But combat-focused shooting, we've got about 50 instructors nationwide, and they're incredibly busy.
Okay, when we come back, we're going to talk about our first crime scene today, so don't go away. Welcome back to Stop the Threat. We're about to look at a crime scenario that took place in Texas. This particular crime scene could almost be called which we're referring to as overwhelming force, could be also called home invasion, but this is overwhelming force. So let's look at part one.
Don't move! Give us your money! Give us your money!
Okay, I agree. It probably doesn't make any difference what the guns are that come in the door, but that's why we call this one overwhelming force. It obviously made the homeowner stop and give a second thought to what was about to take place. Steve?
What that points up to me, first thing, is the importance of good locks and good doors and doing anything you can to delay them from kicking that door as quickly as possible. Second thing is believe that it can happen to you in your home and don't wait for the door to bust before you start taking action. As soon as you hear somebody beating on that door, do something.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think a lot of us would pause and go
Absolutely.
bang, 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 and then all of a sudden the door. So, Rob, I know what your response is going to be, but tell me.
Well, I agree. I mean, at this point, it is about realizing that this can happen to you, realizing that there's things that you can do ahead of time to make this harder, and then not hesitating. You know, you've got to have a plan. We've got stimulus response. You know, the stimulus is someone's trying to kick in your door. The response needs to be not to stand in front of the door and be stunned.
Yeah, I don't know whether it was ICE or somewhere else, but you did a DVD, I think, on different areas of your home and how you might place a weapon in
Exactly,
those areas. Yeah. And this would be a perfect opportunity to start thinking about where would I put it in the living room.
Yeah, and would you carry it on your body when you're in the home because of situations like this, or do you have them staged where they're accessible relative to the common entrance areas and the paths of travel that you'd be moving through, for sure.
Okay, Kelly?
I would take it from a female perspective, maybe not every female's perspective, but I am certainly not going to carry a weapon in the home, but what I would say to anyone that I'm going to work with or any female that I work with is the same that both of them did. You have to realize this can happen to you. And the first time that you're thinking about it cannot be the second that somebody's kicking your door down. I mean, especially if we have children, we have fire escape plans. We have plans for catastrophes, accidents that can happen. This is a potential catastrophe. This can happen, and you've got to go through it in your head before you're ever in that unfortunate situation.
Does it make any difference where I live?
No. If somebody's coming in your door, I don't think it really matters where you live.
So you still need a plan?
Everyone needs a plan.
Steve?
Gated communities are not immune from this. It happens in gated communities. I don't think there's any place you can live and say it's not going to happen. There are some very, quote, high-end neighborhoods where this is almost an epidemic because bad guys know they got good stuff.
Right, right. Rob, I know that there are some folks out there who will actually come to your home and go through scenarios with you. I don't know a lot of those people, but I do know that it is available in some parts of the country where they'll come out, they'll actually go through your home, and then they'll set up a scenario and tell you how to deal with it.
Security, I know that you do some security consulting. We've done threat assessments for businesses usually, for corporate environments or schools, but certainly private citizens, especially those who might live in the higher end neighborhoods, might be interested in what that information is, how they can figure this out, and there absolutely are firms available probably in every major city that can come out and do that.
Okay, you do that on the corporate level?
I've done a lot of consulting on a corporate level for campus security. If let's say there's a company that has 3 or 4 or 5 buildings and they have some public access, maybe they have some manufacturing, well, they'll bring us in and help consult not only with their executive protection side, but also their facility security. And the same principles apply to the home.
I've done a number of homes, and it's interesting when you go through it with the homeowner because you open their eyes to things they never expected.
Absolutely,
And
I would agree
it's
with
great.
that. And it's an empowering feeling when you can say to somebody, you don't have to have a firearm in every corner. That might not be how your home is set up, but what do you have? What item do you have in your home that can immediately be accessed? And until you really allow someone to go down that road of thought, it may never cross their mind. They could stand right next to a tool for their fireplace, and it would never even cross their mind to use that.
Well, let me ask you this. What are the odds? Maybe I shouldn't say that odds, but suppose he had just turned around and ran back in the kitchen. What do you think?
Well, he may
Is that a possibility?
He may have just cornered himself too, which again brings you right back to having a plan of action. If he runs into the kitchen, that's great, but perhaps there's not an exit out of that kitchen. Maybe there was somewhere else he should go.
Okay, not having a weapon, standing there sort of like, here I am, take me. I'm not real comfortable with that. If I don't have one, I think I'm going to try to retreat and go away.
Evade is the first step.
The first step is always get to your safe room. And if you don't have a safe room, shame on you.
Okay. You know, I like the safe room idea. I think if we can't retreat into the kitchen and out the back door, having a safe room to go to is a good idea. And when we come back, we'll talk more about that. Welcome back. We're talking about an overwhelming force home invasion, and we're talking about different ways to probably look at that. But without seeing part 2, I don't think we can answer that question properly. So let's watch part 2.
Give us your money.
Go get him. I'll get some stuff and we'll get out of here.
No, you go get him. You got the bigger gun.
Which is why you should do what I say.
There he is, he has a gun.
Hello, yes. Two guys just broke into my house. I shot them. I think one of them might be dead.
All right, let me say this one more time because I've said it in the past. These are scenarios taken from a crime report. We know that this took place. I'm not sure I agree with everything that took place, but it is what took place.
The interesting observation that I noticed was the fact that he had a weapon there. When he heard the original kick at the door, he didn't go toward his firearm. He stood there, he waited to see what would happen, and obviously there was a delay there, but again, going through the scenario and the potential problem of somebody kicking in your door, to me, it would assume that he would go right for his firearm.
Yeah, it would seem to me that in that particular situation, someone's banging on the door, rather than standing there, I might be backing towards where I know there is a weapon.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Steve?
He fought the fight.
Fought
I mean,
the
that was
fight.
the good news, but he left his position to cover and came out to engage them, and that's something that you should never.
Yeah,
Unless
I
you
think-
have no alternative, you should not do that.
Yeah, he won on this one, but I'm not sure that I would suggest doing it that way. What do you?
No, and my fear, obviously it's a reenactment, but my fear is that people actually do hear that theme music in their head, like start up, like when they're training, when they're practicing, they're envisioning this. What am I going to do? That guy was around the corner. He kind of got lucky. They shot at him as he ran away. He threw something, which was kind of cool. He made a little distraction. He made his move to safety. He got his gun. I would consider that a barricade, right? And we talked about safe rooms a little bit earlier. The idea of a safe room doesn't have to be a vault door. It's just wherever you are, where you're not in immediate danger, you have your firearm, you can get on the phone with the police. That's your barricade. Don't leave.
Right.
I would certainly not want the couch to be my barricade.
Yeah, I was pretty unhappy with the couch. It seemed like a little heroic to me. That is what it said in the crime report, that he did dive behind the couch. I don't know that the couch would have stopped any of those rounds.
Not with a rifle. it
Yeah,
wouldn't have.
maybe, but yeah, I think it's a little risky. But again, this is a true crime report that we're looking at, and that is what took place. Would I want to suggest it? I don't think
Just
so.
because something works doesn't mean it's a good idea.
Or work every time.
Exactly. Luck counts. We can't
Right.
count on luck,
Right.
but sometimes luck has counted, and people take that as a training paradigm.
Right.
And that's the wrong way to look
the
at
danger, is that somebody would look at, I mean, I've heard people say, well, if you're alive at the end, then everything you did was correct. Well, not necessarily. You should be very grateful that you're alive, but we don't want that to become the pattern, the learning or the teaching pattern for somebody else. So that's dangerous.
And what we're
Make
trying
them come to you.
Yes.
He was in a
Right,
position.
and I like that.
Yes.
He could have backed down the hallway. he didn't have to keep coming forward and now getting into a gunfight. He could have backed down the hallway and, as Rob, back into a safe room. It doesn't have to have a metal door on it. It could be the bathroom, but I mean...
or back into a room with a window and go out the window.
Right.
Or go out the window.
Get
sure,
out of the
sure.
house if you can.
And I think those are all better personally than running and diving behind the couch and doing some kind of a, I don't know, something you'd see in the movies. But that is what took place. So again, I'm not sure I'm going to write a book and suggest everyone do it that way. Would you?
Absolutely not. I'd say find the deepest hole you can get into that, and it'll make them come to you.
You know, he's already seen that there's a rifle there.
Right.
Okay, that already tells me that I'm probably outmatched here. So I think that's a good reason for me to retreat with my gun, not come forward with my gun.
Yeah, evade, arm, barricade, communicate, get on the phone with the police, and then if necessary, respond.
Yeah, and get on phone with police is something I haven't seen. And they haven't done that. He hasn't even thought about that. We come back, we'll tell you more about it. Welcome back. We've looked at overwhelming force, a home invasion, which involved a rifle, and we've had a lot of comments on what maybe we should or should not do. But what do we want to leave the viewers with? What do we want them to take away from today's program?
The very first thing that I would say is prepare for it. Be prepared for this worst case scenario. Nobody wants to be there, but anybody could end up being there. So don't be caught off guard.
Have a plan.
Have a plan. Absolutely.
I agree with having a plan in this, and I also feel that don't go to a gunfight unless you have to. And if you're in a position of safety, if you're in a position where they can't see you, if you're in a position where you've got a funnel that you can draw them into, stay there. Don't go out. Don't try to engage them. Don't be a hero, unless there are extraordinary circumstances like other people in the house. But generally, let them come to you. Be the defense on this in a situation like this, and make it so tough on them that they decide to leave without taking anything.
Okay. Rob?
Yeah, and Steve alludes to another issue that we don't know. Maybe there were kids upstairs. Maybe there are people on the other side of the house. If you have to go forward, if you have to engage to make sure those guys don't go out to hurt other people, your family members you're trying to defend, you don't run and dive behind something that's not very likely to stop the bullets of the firearm you've already seen, that couch in this case. You know, move smartly, use what cover there is, and that corner of the interior of the home is going to be a lot better than some kind of soft furniture. So, you know, these are advanced tactics, these are advanced issues, but fundamentally, having the firearm staged somewhere, reacting as soon as you know that you're under attack, someone's trying to get in, get on the phone with the police, don't come out of cover if you don't need to. These are all just very basic, fundamental things that if you have a firearm in your home, you need to be thinking about.
Yeah, and I think as we said earlier in the other segment, maybe practicing something.
Absolutely.
So that you have an idea
yeah.
that leads back to your plan, but having a plan in your mind and actually doing something and walking through a scenario, I think there's a big difference there. So
And engage other people in the house. I mean, you can't just practice yourself and expect everybody else to know what you're going to do. If you've got more than one person in the home, they all need to be engaged in this plan,
okay, I like
in
that.
the discussion of the plan, and in the
Right.
practice of the plan.
Right, and if you have children there, what advice would you say?
If
You hear gunshots downstairs?
If you hear gunshots toddlers, you're going to have to fight your way to the toddlers.
Yeah, okay.
Kids that are above toddlers, tell them what you want them to do. Go in the bathroom, lock the doors, jump in the bathtub, and stay there until we tell you to come out. If you got teenagers, sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't.
Would you suggest that they call 911 if they hear gunfire downstairs?
Oh, absolutely. It needs to be part of the plan. Actually, a good friend of mine who teaches martial arts had a home invasion. He was out of the house. His wife and younger children were pushed into the back of the house by gunmen. His 17-year-old son was upstairs, made the call to 911, and the police showed up, and the bad guys ran away. So, you know, there's a real-world situation in an upscale neighborhood where people who, in theory, were trained to do other things simply called the police, and the police showed up, and that worked out.
Okay, I'm going to put Kelly on the spot because I know she has some older children, okay, more mature. If this were to take place, what would they do?
Well, we definitely have a plan in
Okay,
our
good,
home.
good.
And they know the rooms. We don't have a secure, safe room with the vault in it, but we have a room that has been set up for a safer environment. And they've had the entire talk from this is what you do, step A, B, C, and D. You have to give them a plan. Otherwise, they're going to be standing just like this gentleman in the middle of a room, not knowing what to do.
And at a certain point, I'll tell you that I think the kids in the home at a certain age, they become part of the response plan also, because there's no reason they can't access that firearm if they've been taught how to use responsibly. And we've seen it time and time again where minors have defended themselves with firearms successfully.
We're out of time, unfortunately. Like every show that we have, it doesn't seem as though we have enough time to give you all of the information that we may have. I appreciate you tuning in, though. If you have any comments about today's show, get in touch with me. If you have a scenario that you think might be interesting and that we can learn from, let me know what that is. Until then, be safe, be trained, be alert. See you next week.